Well, good morning. This is Don Thornton. I'm the short sale guy. I'm also known as Don the Grant guy because I help people get $10,000 worth of free Google ads every month. I'm taking my walk here in Moscow on the territory of Moscow State University here, a nice sunny day. And I just want to talk a little bit about something that I think is pretty important. And it's something that I certainly have experience with, and I hope that you'll learn something from my experience, and if it can make it a bit easier for you to adapt and make the changes that you need to do to be successful, then hey, if I can shave off even 5 minutes of a tedious and often painful process, that's really all that matters. But one of the biggest challenges I've had in my real estate investing career, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm called Don the Short Sale Guy for a reason, because I've done like 2,500 short sales in almost 20 years of doing my real estate investing business. So, the challenge is you have to stop trying to please everybody all the time. And the biggest challenge is when the person that you're trying to please the most is the one that lives with you. And that could be a father, that could be, another family member. For me, it's my wife and my mother-in-law. And it's an interesting phenomenon because you can get caught up in having a lot of your self-worth and your self-esteem ride on their opinion of what you're doing, who you are, and so on and so forth. And I know that even though I've been married 21 years, and my wife, when I met my wife, I was unemployed, believe it or not. And we were able to use my in-laws' money to keep us going, to get us started, and so on and so forth. And we struggled financially for a long time. We were married in November of 1999. I didn't break through with my real estate investing career until 2003. In the fall of 2003 is when I started making money on real estate. Now, I wasn't doing real estate investing when we got married. I was unemployed. We moved to America. I've been in Moscow since 1989. When I first came over to work with the embassy, and then everything opened up in 1991, and ended up staying. And so my whole trajectory of my career, which was focused on learning the language, graduating, my double major was Russian, and then international relations. My track was going to be State Department. That's what I wanted to do. I want to do foreign service. Well, in the Cold War, if you marry a Russian citizen or a Soviet citizen at the time, then there ain't no way you're gonna get a security clearance, and you're not gonna get in the foreign service if you don't have a security clearance. So that kind of went out the window, that career path. So I had to make some changes, and so I decided that I was going to have my own business, and I did well. I did well for a lot of years. I'd say about 3 or 4 years, and then like everything else, the market changes, and if you can't change with it, then all of a sudden you're obsolete and you got to find another gig, as they say. But we moved to Orlando. The in-laws gave us our stake, and I did get a job in Orlando at a pipeline inspection company. And ironically enough, they sent me back to Moscow because they wanted me to do some work over there and try to see if I could get some sales from the former Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. So that was a disaster. 2 years before I got fired. It wasn't a good fit. They weren't really committed to it, and frankly, I kind of knew that it wasn't gonna work. So I was just trying to milk it as long as I could. But it's an interesting dynamic when you are married to a foreign national, from my point of view, because for their point of view, I'm the foreign national. And I completely understand that, because in our marriage, we've spent probably 80% of our time in Russia and not in America. So in this category, I am the foreigner. I'm the one that is a little bit alien. My upbringing, my values, what I find important are completely out of whack with what they are. It also is, it's also very interesting that as an entrepreneur, life can be up and down. Look, as successful as I am and have been, it doesn't mean that we don't have setbacks. It doesn't mean that we don't have short-term financial cash flow crunches and so on and so forth. And my wife and my mother-in-law, they have a huge problem with that because, they came from a stable Soviet lifestyle. I mean, her father, my wife's grandfather, was a high-ranking official in the prosecuting attorney's office in Russia on a federal level, and he was a bureaucrat, but he was a very successful bureaucrat. But he had that salary, and of course he had lots of perks because he reached a really high level. They had the dacha, which is a summer house. They had an apartment, literally a 5-minute walk to Red Square, and then her father, my wife's father, he is a acclaimed nuclear physicist. He's like 72 years old. Even now, he's not allowed to travel outside the country unless he's in part of a delegation because of all the secrets he knows, and he has top security clearances, and they will not let him out of the country unless he's part of an official group or whatever. So, but again, very stable income. Very stable, very successful. He made a lot of money, which my mother-in-law was able to turn into. She was actually funny. She flipped a lot of apartments in Moscow. She was a fix and flipper, and they made a lot of money. And they own a lot of real estate here, which now my wife owns. So they very, very smart. But again, they always had the salary. They always had, they never had to learn what I've had to learn. Well, actually they did because she married me, but I'm more used to it because I formed my first business when I was 18 years old after high school. So I have always been entrepreneurial in spirit. I did my first house flip back in 1991. So I assumed a mortgage on a house in Utah when I was going to college. And I assumed it. I put like $3,000 down, and then I just paid the mortgage and rehabbed it, and eventually sold it and made about $50,000. So that was my first successful flip. But I guess they are very fearful about the future, and for them it is very difficult to be married to me or to have to be in a familiar relationship with me, and our son was born with 2 cerebral hemorrhages, and it has been everything we can do to get him to the point where he can catch up to, his peers. And he's now going to start his sophomore year in university. And, for all intents and purposes, we've got him to the point where he's almost back to where he should have been. But I mean, I probably spent $1 million, if not more, on his therapy and everything. And when you have a sick child, I mean, everything goes to the sick child, and it's hard to have a normal life. And my wife has really suffered more than I have, I think, emotionally, because I could throw myself into my work, but she was on the front lines having to deal with him, and it's basically made her a nervous wreck in some ways. So unfortunately, her way of dealing with it a lot of times is lashing out, and it's I call it the time machine syndrome, where I do hear a lot of, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. Basically, if I was going to be doing a psychobabble 12-step thing, I would say that she should stop shooting on me, because I hear shoulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda all the time, and my response is always, well, listen, I would be glad to go back and do everything that you said, and not make any mistakes. If you could get a time machine built, I'll be glad to jump in that time machine, go back, and I will do everything you said I should have done. Can't do it now. I mean, all I can do is just deal with the repercussions, try to limit the damage, and learn lessons and move on. So I have a very entrepreneurial background, a very entrepreneurial attitude about things. For me, mistakes are not scary. I mean, you deal with it. I don't like making mistakes, trust me, but you deal with it and you move on. Whereas for her, they're body blows. They are body blows, and she's filled with fear about what the next mistake's going to be, which is ironic for me, because I'm thinking to myself, honey, I made a shitload of money, and I don't understand why you're so, I mean, we've done pretty well, but nevertheless, because we don't, our money depends on the next closing, it's very stressful for her. So it can be a very critical relationship, especially as things get stressful. And I guess for me, a big part of my growth process as an entrepreneur and as a person is to stop trying to make them believe in what I'm doing, stop, wanting to get their permission or their approval, and trust my own instincts and trust my own thing. And I started realizing, it's like, let's be honest here, okay? I'm the one that's made this money. I'm the one that built a business from nothing, and, I love you, honey, but your total job experience was working, 11 months as an inbound sales professional when you graduated college at Herbalife customer service in Russia. I think I'm probably the one that has more experience, and maybe I should trust my own judgment more than I should trust yours. But because I love her, and because I don't really have any of my family support system on my side, my parents are gone. I don't have a relationship with my brother and two sisters anymore. So I found that I was really, really hoping and trying to get approval from them. And it got to the point where over the last couple of years, I started like 3 or 4 years ago, and now to where we're at today, which is I'm recording this on July 26th or something like that, 2021. I have to trust my voice and trust my experience. And I think that, if anyone's out there, you don't have to be a real estate investor. You could be anybody, but especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're out there in the trenches and commission sales, realtor, mortgage broker, it doesn't matter. If you're out there trying to get leads and trying to build something, and it depends on you, everything's on you to succeed or not, it's pretty heavy. It's very heavy, and the stress is amazing. So it will ease your mind. It will give you more energy. It will help you stay more positive if you focus on pleasing yourself and not on anybody else. Because I had to come to that conclusion a while ago that my wife is what I call a front runner, in the sense that she will cheer me 100% when everything works. But if I talk to her about my dreams, if I talk to her about, hey, I think I had this great awakening and we could do this and that, she'll shut me down and say, I don't want to talk about it until you made some money on it. I don't want to hear about how much you could make. I want to see that you make it. And for me, part of the process is talking about it, because that's how I work through things. And I think, I'm a walking calculator when it comes to analyzing something and deciding whether that would be a good plan for me or not, if it's worth the investment of my time or not. And lots of times, stuff I've tried, side hustles, don't work. Some have, but some of them don't. But it would just crush me. It would just crush me when I could not get her to approve of what I'm doing. And it finally is just like, the definition of insanity is stop going to the well when the well's dry. And it's okay. And, it's fine, because I found other people in my life where we're in the same path. We're on the same entrepreneurial path. And for me, even though I have a very stable, successful real estate investing business, short sales, I have been, the last 3 years, I've dedicated myself to establishing my brand online and taking my Don the Short Sale brand nationally and expanding my short sale negotiation business nationally. So that has forced me to come out of my comfort zone and be able to put myself out there in a way that frankly scares my wife, because there's no guarantee it's going to work. What if I fall flat on my face, which I've done before? You're talking to a guy that at the height of his own hubris and arrogance decided to sink $400,000 into a tennis club in a small town in outside of Orlando, which was a disaster. So that's a subject for another day. But I get where she's coming from. But I would say for you got to stop looking for approval from people outside of yourself and find the approval inside you, because ultimately it's your business, and it's going to sink or fail on your ability to get the work done. And discouragement and disappointment, if it's coming to you from people close to you, it can be toxic, and it's like I call them energy vampires. My wife and mother-in-law can be huge energy vampires, 100%. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I'm not calling them vampires, for heaven's sake. Understand my context. They can, their fears, their negativity, and their criticism sucks the energy out of me. And so I've had, as a way to keep myself productive and motivated, I've had to just basically make a decision that I'm putting a barrier up. I'm not talking about this stuff anymore. I have other people that I can talk to about that. And I have a partner on my podcast, Renee Rainville, the Renee and Don show that we're starting here shortly. And she's the person that I bounce ideas back up, because she's on the same path as me. She's building her online business, and we're working together, and we're doing a lot of stuff together. She's also a real estate investor. So Renee's the person I go to, and we talk about stuff because she understands, and we're, like I said, on the same path. And my wife is not. So why burden my wife with this, with something that causes her pain, brings up fears and bad feelings from previous mistakes I've made? So this is a long-winded story, but I just wanted to show you that, I'm not this guru that's out there trying to tell you exactly how to do it because I've done everything perfectly. It's a journey. We're all on the same journey. So I hope that you found value in this. I look forward to talking to you next on my next podcast. Thanks.